Hi, my name is Mike, and today we're going to do a yoga and meditation practice, about 45 minutes. We'll do 30 minutes of yoga movements, and then about 10 to 15 minutes of meditation. I know the audio quality is not great yet, but this is what we've got for now. And then that'll definitely improve, also using some natural lighting. First, we can start in the seated posture. Let's notice where we are. Let's feel what it is to sit, noticing the sensation, being aware. Awareness of a little bit better posture, extending up through the spine, feeling the sit bones rooted down and the head reaching up to the sky. The lower back extending a bit and the core kind of holding in a bit, not tightening the muscles, but just instead of loose like that, we're kind of engaging the core a little bit and keeping a more erect lower back. We'll take a few breaths here, noticing our posture and feeling relaxed, but at the same time having a little better posture. Another breath. Then we'll bring some movement, placing the hands beside the hips, reaching one arm up towards the sky, reaching overhead, and maybe up and over, lengthening that side. Taking a few breaths. And then moving to the other side, lengthening through that arm up to the sky and over the head. And we'll do it on the other side again. Reaching through the fingertips, breathing deeply from within, and then reaching up and overhead. Or if that's where we are, I can kind of force it, but I'm a little bit out of alignment. I'm really focusing on rooting down to the ground, and reaching through the fingertips. Keeping kind of an erect lower back. And then moving to the other side for a couple of breaths. Breathing through the posture. Returning to the mat, hands to the mat. I'll do some circular movements while seated, feeling still sitting down, grounded. And we'll open our chest a bit, forward, and then moving in a circular motion, crunching a little bit as we go back, and extending as we're moving forward, focusing on around the hips, feeling rooted down. and then moving to the other side. Opening the chest. Returning to the center, let's go onto the hands and knees. I'll do a few warming movements. Fingers spread wide, the palms flat. Let's do a few cat-cow, exhaling and arching, inhaling and opening the chest. A few rounds of this. Then returning to neutral. Let's do opposite arm, opposite leg. We can do one arm and then lower it, one leg at a time, or both. Extending one arm and the other leg. Taking a few breaths each side. And switching to the other side when you're ready. Arm extended, leg, heel pressed back. We'll do one more round on each side. Noticing the sensation on each side. And let's move through a child's pose, pressing back toward the heels and the forehead towards the ground. Looking up towards the hands, the chest lowering down between the hands. Inhaling, raising up into a cobra. Exhaling, lowering down, and then pressing back into the child's pose. Do a couple more times of that mini flow. Inhaling and exhaling, lowering down. Raising up, inhaling with cobra. Exhaling, pressing back. A little bit of warming in the body. Paying attention to the joints around the shoulders and the wrists. And once we're returning to the child's pose, looking up between the hands and stepping forward with both feet. Allowing the head to hang a bit and feeling the sensation along the backs of the legs. slowly raising up to standing. Taking a few breaths here in mountain pose. Standing with our feet about hip apart. Feeling stable through the waist, up through the upper body and into the head. We'll move through some sun salutations. These can be modified or from a plank posture. Inhaling, raising the arms overhead, and exhaling, folding. Inhaling with a flat back, and exhaling, stepping back into plank. As an option, you can lower your knees. Lowering down and raising into upward facing dog. And then pressing back into downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths. Stepping forward, both feet. Inhaling with a flat back, hands on the shins, and exhaling, folding. Inhaling, raising up to standing, and taking a breath in mountain pose. These are kind of slower sun salutations. Inhaling, raising up, and exhaling, folding down. Inhaling with a flat back, and then stepping back into plank or knees on the mat. Lowering down. Inhaling, raising into upward facing dog. And then pressing back into downward facing dog. Let's step our feet between the hands again. Inhaling with a flat back and exhaling, folding. Inhaling, raising up to standing, and taking a couple of breaths here. From the standing pose, let's step back into the warrior posture to start. Stepping back with one leg, feet about 45 degrees, and the front knee over the front ankle. Gently moving the hips into facing forward a little bit, and feeling that sensation down the back leg into the foot. Taking a few breaths here. Noticing the edge of the back foot pressing into the mat, perhaps the outside edge. Raising the arms overhead with the biceps toward the ears. And lowering, extending both legs with a slight bend in the front knee and moving the hips toward the side, moving into triangle pose. Reaching, keeping our side of our abs engaged here, and then reaching our forward hand toward the forward ankle. while twisting and opening our body towards the sky. Take a few breaths. We can also extend the upper arm. A couple more breaths. Raising up to standing, we can just, so that I'm still facing you, I can just flip around this way and having the front knee over the front ankle into warrior one again, and the back foot about 45 degrees off that way. The sensation in the sole of your other foot might be different. Noticing any tension. Moving the hips toward the front and moving into warrior one. As an option, raising the arms overhead. Bracing the core a bit. Then extending both legs, moving the hips toward the side, moving into the triangle pose. Engaging the upper side ab muscles, opening up towards the sky, extending the arm up, and then gazing at the thumb. A few more breaths. And rising up when you're ready. We'll stay facing toward the side of the mat now, bringing both feet pointing towards the side of the mat. That's keeping our core tucked a little bit, and let's do a slight back bend. We can place our fists on the lower back a little bit and focusing on opening the upper body, inhaling and pressing back. Shoulders down and away, down and back. Exhaling, let's do a forward fold, keeping that same core and feeling the sensation into the lower back, hinging from the hips. Reaching our hands towards the ground. Returning to the standing straddle posture. Let's do a few squats like this. Inhaling, raising our arms overhead, and exhaling, flexing the knees into star pose. Inhaling, raising back up, and exhaling, lowering down again into the squat. Do a few more times. As an option, we can also sweep the arms to the ground on the squat. Inhaling, raising up, and exhaling, bending the knees and sweeping the fingertips across the ground. One more, and we'll move to stepping to the front of the mat. Let's move into some balance postures here. I was recently at the gym, so it's going to be more of a recovery type yoga practice. So we'll probably incorporate some more stretching type movements on the ground. The balance postures, I'll face you, that way you can see better. We'll move into tree pose. The heel and sole of one foot against the opposite ankle or calf, taking a few breaths. Lowering that foot. Let's move to the other side. Tree pose. Slight difference in musculature, perhaps, engaging one side or the other. Let's come back to standing. And we'll do a pigeon standing stretch type pose. Bringing the one ankle, this is also balancing, as an option. And bending down so that we can still see the knee kind of behind the toes of the foot on the ground. Really, we can see the whole foot in front of the knee if we're bending forward like this. But focusing on pressing the hips back. Feeling the sensation along the outside of the upper thigh. Taking a deep breath and opening the chest. My mistake, we're actually going to do just 30 minutes asana practice movement and then about 10 to 15 minutes meditation. So we'll move to the standing pigeon on the other side. I forgot this was a 45-minute, not an hour practice. So we'll move right to the ground after this. Noticing the sensation. Feeling gratitude for the ability to have proprioception. Then coming to standing at the top of the mat, we'll do one more forward fold. Stepping back into plank and lowering down. Inhaling, exhaling, folding. Raising up with a flat back and stepping back or jumping back. Both legs. Lowering down. We'll come into upward facing dog and downward facing dog. Taking a few moments in downward facing dog. And then coming down to the knees into a seated posture. We can sit extending the legs in front. Let's just lower down into a bridge onto the back, and we'll move into bridge pose. The feet flat, about a hand's width distance from the hips. Shoulders down away from the ears, pressing the hips up towards the sky. Feeling the extension in the hips, the front leg, the front thigh muscles. And then exhaling, lowering down, or breathing as you would deeply through this process. We'll do another bridge posture. Lowering down to the ground when you're ready. We can take the knees towards the chest and roll back and forth a bit, slightly massaging the lower back. From here, we can move into a hip opening and a happy baby pose. Placing on our hands below the soles of the feet, or grasping around the toes, the great toes, but also making sure we're pressing our knuckles against the knuckles of the feet. So we're not injuring our toes, but we're engaged the whole thing. Keeping our lower back flat against the mat, and then pressing the inside of the thighs open, with the heels pointed up towards the sky. Taking a few breaths. If you're noticing the hips, the lower back lifting the sacrum, then just don't pull as much, or don't press the heels as much towards the sky. Really, the fingers are more guiding things here. It's not really pulling. It's just giving a gentle guiding direction. Let's place our feet back as it was before with the bridge pose, and windshield wipe our knees side to side. Feeling some movement around the waist. Extending the legs. We can come into resting pose, into a final relaxation or a meditation posture. For this, we'll begin with awareness of the breath. Now I'm going to come to a seated posture, but you can remain either in a resting pose or in a seated pose, whatever you prefer. Noticing the sinking sensation, the groundedness of whatever body part is rooted against the mat. Feeling our bodies lengthened. Breathing deeply and exhaling, perhaps through the mouth, relaxing the body. Keeping the chin tucked slightly in, extending the neck. If you're lying down, extending the neck a bit, or if you're seated, reaching up toward the sky. Taking a few deep breaths. And now we can also think about what we're grateful for. Perhaps the ability for movement, or proprioception, ability to do the practice. Perhaps it's a nice day, or another day. Think of something you might be grateful for in this moment. Deepening the breath. We'll stay here for about 10 minutes in silence meditation, just focusing on the breath, the posture, perhaps what you're grateful for, just awareness of the movements and the body. returning back into the environment with awareness. Taking another couple deep breaths here, opening the eyes if you'd like. Noticing difference in the feeling of awareness in the body. Thanks for joining in the practice today. Namaste.